So allow me to bring you to a story in the Bible which has been written in the 3 synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, with just one minor difference, which is in the book of Matthew, where it says that there were 2 instead of 1 demon-possessed man. And if there is one transformation that is really very remarkable, it is that of a butterfly, which starts out as an icky, yucky, hair-raising caterpillar, which is not very lovely, to something that is very beautiful, remarkable, and nice. And don't we all want that as a result of our transformation? That all of us will be beautiful. So being transformed, and that being our logo, which are the butterflies that you see all around, we expect that all of our transformation are going to be beautiful, right? Expect a beautiful result as we go through this conversation, which I have entitled Transformed. And as you can see, the picture that I have chosen to represent this slide seeks to show us the transformation from a caterpillar down to a beautiful butterfly. And that is the same thing that happened in Luke chapter 8. The day began for Jesus Christ. That day started with him in the boat in the Sea of Galilee doing what he usually does, and that is teaching. Jesus Christ teaching in the boat is not new at all, because this has already happened in Luke chapter 5 when he called Peter and told Peter, "Come, Peter, I will make you fishers of men." He was also in a boat addressing his people and teaching them there. But what was different in Luke chapter 8 is that Jesus was now teaching through parables, through storytelling. So he would address a big crowd and tell them the parable, and then go back behind this group of people and talk to his small group and explain what the parable was all about. So it's practically him repeating the same teaching twice. And can you imagine that at the end of that day, after teaching the parable of the soils, or the parable of the seeds, or the parable of the sower, and the parable of the lamp, how tired Jesus was. So coming from a boat setting, what do you think Jesus just wanted to do? He wanted to rest. Pretty much like all of us, after a good day's work, we're all tired, or good days after a good day in school, we become so tired, and what do we want to do? We just want some me time. And this is what Jesus wanted. He wanted to spend alone time. So he calls his disciples, take the boat right there. And mind you, with all the tremendous followers that Jesus had during this time, a lot of people were already riding their boat at the same token and following wherever he was going to go. So Luke sets the tone of that meeting. And we all know that what happened after that. The miracle of the coming of the storm happens after that. So as they were going from Capernaum, going down to the opposite direction, a storm ensues. So as the storm was happening, everybody was so tired already, and yet here they were being banged across the different sides of the boat. And what happens? Jesus quiets the storm down. And when that happens, this is where our story begins. And if there's one message, a single message that I'd like you to take home today, it is this: that God's transforming power propels us to what? Proclaim. That God transforms us, and that is why we are undergoing this transformation campaign, because that is what God does. We will see in the story how much of a transforming power God has, so much so that it will indeed, at the end of this journey, the thing that all of us should do is to be able to proclaim the transformation that happened. And at the end of this talk, of this conversation, we will all together do just that. Because God's transforming power propels us to proclaim. Let's take a look at how the story went. Luke chapter 8, starting with verse 26, had this to say: So they arrived in the region of the Gerasenes across the lake from Galilee. I have a map here. Jesus came from here, which was Capernaum. So Luke aptly described that they were going across, which was here. They were going to Gergesa in this map, that's the name. Some Bible scholars would name them as Gerasene, some would say Gandara, but proves to show that they were going indeed across from the Sea of Galilee. And this is where, somewhere here along this area, was where the storm ensued. And as they were going to Gerasene, I am sure that with their hearts beating and their pulse rate still just about to come down, they land the boat. And I am sure you could audibly hear the disciples saying, "Whew, land at last. Thank God for a safe journey." Because now they're able to land. And Gerasene, this whole area is called the Decapolis. This area constitutes 10 cities or towns, which is Gentile territory. The right portion of your map are where the Jews live. But the left portion of your map, the Decapolis, is Gentile territory. These are the non-Jews. These are the non-believers. So maybe Jesus wanted to do just that. He wanted to go where he was not known. So, the disciples, heart-pounding, pulse rate still at high rate, goes to land. Jesus lands them. And then, what happened? As Jesus was climbing out of the boat, a man who was possessed by demons, take note, it did not say he was possessed with a demon, but instead he said that he was possessed by demons. If you can put only a lot of S's there. Demons welcomed them. So imagine with me, as the boat landed, when the boat landed, as soon as it lands, they could see land, green, grass, pasture. They could see a road that goes to the city. So maybe they were already thinking, McDonald's or Jollibee. Up on the right, they see a hill. And on that hill was grass, field, and a herd of pigs. And somewhere along that terrain, they see a cemetery. So this is the scene. Road goes to the city, a hill with pigs, and a cemetery. And as soon as they land, thinking that they will be able to go to McDonald's, that doesn't happen. Why? Because Jesus is welcomed by a demon-possessed man. Luke vividly describes that man. He says he is homeless, so he is a hermit. He doesn't have a home. Later on, you will see where he lives. And where does he live? He lives in the cemetery. He lives among the tombs. He lives among the dead. And to the Jews, mga kapatid, that is a no-no. You defile yourself when you get close to the dead. After that, they are welcomed by this man who was homeless and naked. Can you imagine? The usher of Gerasene was nude. The welcoming committee was naked. So we all know that there's something wrong with this man. Because in their area, they would have harsh summers and harsh winters. And almost all of that time, he would be naked. So you know there's something wrong. Because he would rather be naked rather than clothe himself and stay under the very, very intense heat and extreme cold. So we very well know that this guy must be mad. There's something wrong about him. And as soon as he saw Jesus, what did he do? He shrieked. That is more than a scream. A shriek is a very, very shrill sound. So this guy was shrieking and he fell down in front of Jesus. Was that in worship? Was he worshiping, that's why he fell down? No. Let's read further. Then he screamed, "Why are you interfering with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" Imagine with me a naked man coming before the Lord, whom you very well know is not sane. He's demon-possessed. And yet, one thing to note is, kilala niya si Jesus. He was able to call Jesus by name. He said, Jesus, and add to that, he acknowledges that he is the Son of the Most High God. Isn't that amazing? That even being demon-possessed, the man could utter the name of Christ. He recognized him. Why? Because demons knew that they could do anything with man, but they cannot do anything with Jesus because they are under the authority of Christ. And they know that. They very well know that with the command of Jesus, they are under his authority. That's why he comes before him and begs. Says, why are you here? It's not yet time. The demons know that somewhere along their history, they will all be dead, they will all be punished. And this group of demons knew very well that that's going to happen. But what he's saying here is that, Jesus, it's not yet time. Hindi pa po kami dead end. It is not yet the end of the story for us. We still have some things to do. I still have to stay with this man, so do not interfere with what I'm doing with him. Do not interfere when I'm asking him to run about naked or living in the cemetery. That is not yet your time now. So that is what was being said here. Add to that, he further begs, don't torture me. For at this time, Jesus has already commanded him, leave the man. The conversation is not captured in Luke. Maybe it was a whisper. Maybe the Lord whispered to the guy and said, okay, demons, leave. But it's amazing here that Jesus was commanding them. They knew that these demons will submit and will obey what Christ commands. That's why they do this. Luke further describes that the spirit had taken control of the man. That even when they were placed under guard and put in chains and shackles, he simply broke them and rushed to the wilderness. This man was violent. He was out of control. Some stories would say that every time there's a new person, so pag merong dadating na bangka, biglang nandyan na siya. He would be running from the cemetery, he would be running from the hills, wild and screaming and shrieking and scaring everybody off. He was homicidal, he was suicidal, he was everything you can imagine for a demon-possessed man to be. And mind you, the movies do not capture what he was doing. He was so out of control. And yet, do you think his family did not do anything for him? I'm sure they did. Even people in authority. Because I am sure that tourism was zero almost in Garrison simply because of him. Right? Who would want to visit a town wherein where someone runs amok naked? So, I am sure that his family and his friends and people in authority, as described, would put him down and try to control him. And so what happens? There are chains and shackles that are put maybe on his hands or on his legs, but he's just like Superman. He's so strong. When they put the chains, finished. He just removes it, and then what happens? He runs wild again. He goes to the wilderness, or he goes back to his home, which is the cemetery. It's pretty much like us, right? Apart from Christ, we know that we may be running amok. A lot of us are laughing our problems away. A lot of us have really demons, not literal demons, because I'd like to believe that Christians cannot be possessed by demons anymore. But the thing is, who is possessing us? What is possessing us? Our money, our wealth, our work, our office, our boyfriend, our girlfriend? What is possessing us? Pretty much like this man who was deep in trouble because he was possessed by many demons. Jesus demanded, "What is your name?" And he goes, "Legion." But I'm sure that's not the name that his parents gave him. His name is not written. But what is legion? He wanted to make a mark. Because legion in the Roman militia meant that it was a whole group of about 6,000 military men. So why did he choose that name? He wanted to show force and power in numbers. So he said, I'm legion. Dami namin eh. Because that's true. Because he said he was filled with demons. And what happens next? The demons kept begging Jesus not to send them into the bottomless pit. The demons knew that they were going to the bottomless pit. Earlier they said, it's not yet time. Do not throw us there. In some translations, it will say the abyss or hell. For the demons knew that this is where they were going. So he begs them. The demons know that they are under the authority of Christ. So they need to beg, Jesus, do not send us to the bottomless pit. And then what happens? There happened to be a large herd of pigs. When I read this, I said, isn't sheep supposed to be herded? I didn't realize that pigs needed to be herded too. So these pigs were feeding off the hillside, and as they were feeding off there, the demons saw them and they begged Jesus, Jesus, don't put us to the bottomless pit. Can you just let us go to that herd of pigs? So Jesus gave them the permission. So take note, the demons needed permission from Christ. So they know they needed to obey. So that's why they were begging him, let us go there. Throw us there. We should go there. And so Jesus gave them permission. So the demons went out and went to the pigs. That's why some studies would say, see, Jesus doesn't like the pigs. That's why we all have to be vegans. We have to be vegetarians because Jesus did not like the pigs. No, that's not it, mga kapatid. Okay? The reason why Jesus needed, why do you think, why did Jesus need to tell them to go to the pigs? Why? For what? Because kailangan may evidence. Because what happened here was, when the demon-possessed man, when the demons left his body and went into the pigs, one of the gospel writers' account would tell you how many pigs exactly there were. Well, not exact. They said there were about 2,000 pigs. So can you imagine, minimum na lang, 1 demon per pig. So there were 2,000 demons in the bad body of the man. Can you imagine having 2,000 demons? No, we cannot imagine that. And do not imagine it. So, what happened to the man was, he entered the pigs, the entire herd, and as soon as the demons came into the pig, what happened? They went wayward. And add to that, when they were going wayward, they went from the hill to the cliff, down into the sea. They're all dead. They all killed themselves. Just proves to show us how destructive the demons can be. They were really out to destroy. Kuro sabi ng mga demons, just throw us into the pigs and then we'll just stay there. No. They went there, but the pigs destroyed themselves too. Why did Jesus choose the pigs? Because people need an evidence. Because later on you will see. If the demon-possessed man was cured with nothing, then if you talk about it, then they will say some quack doctor could have just cured him. But here the evidence was very, very apparent. The demons left, went into the pigs killed themselves. Who cannot stand in awe of that event? And proves to show that that indeed happened. Because when the herdsmen saw it, any logical man would have acted the same way. They ran. Diba, syempre, yung baboy tumalon. Diba? They jumped off the cliff. They killed themselves. What do you think any man would do? Run away, takbo. Takot ko na lang doon, no? Something's happening. Because this is the first time that they ever saw this thing happen. And pretty much like us, what the herdsmen did was to go about town and tell them what happened. What do you think was the news that they were talking about? What were they saying? What were they spreading? They were spreading the news as they ran, and people rushed out to see what was happening. They went about town. Every person that they would meet, they would talk to them about this thing that happened. And you know what they were talking about? There's this man who killed our pigs. They weren't talking about this possessed man who was freed. They were talking about, there's this man. He's evil because he killed all our pigs. that was the focus of the story. Why did I say that? So soon after that, a crowd gathered around Jesus. And as they saw the man who had been freed of demons, he was sitting by Jesus' feet. So nakita ng mga tao yung evidence. As they were running, nasan? Where did it happen? There by the hill. You see, there's a man. He killed our pigs. He commanded the pigs and the pigs jumped. There's a man who came on the boat and then he met Legion, and then after that, Legion is well, but the pigs are dead. The demons was sitting at Jesus' feet. And as Luke described the man when he was possessed, Luke describes him vividly once more here. And what does he say? The man is now fully clothed. From a naked man who did not have any shame, who just kept on doing what he was doing regardless of anyone, this time he was clothed. Nagbihis na siya. Siguro nakasuit na siya ngayon. Tabi niya si Jesus di ba? After that, he was not running amok anymore. Di ba? He was screaming and shrieking. This time, he was quiet. He was sane as sane can be. Where there was chaos, now there is peace. Where there is noise and shrieking and screaming, now there is quiet. Where there was nakedness, now there is clothing. If that is not transformation, I don't know what is. From someone who has been creating a mess of the whole town, here he was. From someone who was living among the dead, he now here chooses to be living with the people who are alive, and there with him, Jesus and his disciples. A caterpillar being transformed into a beautiful butterfly. That was what happened. The transforming power of God is here very evident. It is shown, it is very apparent. What happened? This is the interesting part. What did that verse say? They were all afraid. The person who caused you a lot of problems is now healed. Now there will be tourists who will come into our city. The person who caused us fear is now quieted down. And yet you're afraid? What is there to be afraid of now? The demon-possessed man is no longer. And yet, Luke says, they were all afraid. Were they afraid because, wala nang aking pigs. I don't have a life anymore. My livelihood is already gone. No, mga kapatid, ganun din tayo. We are like that. We are the same. When confronted with the very presence of God, we stand afraid. Search for every miracle that Jesus did. Jesus calming the sea. What did the disciples do? They were afraid. The rising of Lazarus, those who were able to witness, what did they say? They were afraid. And that is what happens, mga kapatid. In the presence of God, we tremble. We become afraid. Why? Because we become afraid of the consequences of our sin. Or sometimes we become too comfortable in our sin that we don't like the presence of God to be there. We want to shy away from God. That is why they too were afraid. They became afraid at the very presence of righteousness, at the very presence of joy, of peace, of a redemptive person. See the next verse. And all, walang natira, all, everyone in the people in the region of Gerasenes begged Jesus to go away. The very person who gave them the solution to their problem, they asked them, can you please leave? We don't need you here. Because they didn't want Jesus to be around them. They were so comfortable sinning. They were so comfortable with the wrong. They don't like Christ to be there. They don't like the presence of righteousness to be there around them. Instead of being thankful to Jesus for making the one whom they fear disappear, they wanted him to leave. The people were so gripped with fear and shame that they could not face up the one who was righteous. allow me to just share this story with you. In Pastor Joey's heyday, I've asked his permission to say this. I don't know if my daughter even knows this story. Anyway, in the heyday of Pastor Joey's life, okay, we ran in the same circle. We were barkadas before. And Pastor Joey and our friends would drink the night away. Sila yung tipong iinom sa gabi, pagising sa umaga, iinom ulit para mawala yung hangover the night before. In the 90s, when we were here, one of our friends came to visit. During that time, it was Econ. That's one of the supermarkets here. So they passed there, and true to form, they bought beer. So in the evening, after dinner, sits in front of the TV. Our friend tells him, "Pare, di ka na talaga umiinom?" "Hindi na." "Hindi nga pare. Di ka na talaga umiinom?" "Hindi na nga." And that night, he really didn't drink. And what do you think happened? After that, di na niya kami friend. They shy away from us because they know that we've changed. They know we're different. This time, the people were just so comfortable with what they were doing that all the people wanted Jesus to go away. For the life of me, I could not understand this. Kaya ingat po tayo. Sometimes we become so comfortable in the wrong that we don't want the presence of Christ in our life. We want Him to go away. But I am sure that the transformation series has unearthed a lot of things before us. Spiritual, mental, emotional. We were evaluating this series and we said, hey, this is a good series. Why? Because it has opened every aspect of our life. Financial, vocational. It has shown us what can be done when we submit ourselves to Christ. And it is just so sad that the people of Gerasene opted to let Him go away. Jesus returned to the boat and left, crossing back to the other side of the lake. Christ picked us up at the most opportune time. He took us. Luke said all of them wanted Jesus out except for one. Jesus returned to the boat and left, crossing back to the other side of the sea. And then we see here that the man who was freed from Legion begged Christ. He wanted to go with Him. Jesus, I want to go with you. But what did Jesus say? Jesus had a different plan for him. He said, no, don't go with me. Jesus sent him home and said, go back to your family and tell everything that God has done for you. That is the end result of transformation. That is the result of a transformed life. Because God's transforming power propels us to proclaim. There is a proclamation after our transformation. When we become transformed, pretty much like the people who heard of the story, the proclamation of our lips should be everything that God has done for our lives. There's one Bible scholar who said that if you know enough of the gospel to be saved, you know enough of the gospel to be a missionary. This person became the first missionary to the Gentiles, even before the disciples were commissioned. He was already sent back home. But we know that it is difficult to even minister to our relatives and friends. Why? Because they know us so well. They know us inside out. And yet Christ's command here is, go back to your home. They should be the first one to see that there is indeed a change in your life. The transformation happened. So given these instructions, the man obeyed. He went all throughout town and declared the changes that happened in his life. All of us have a transformation story to tell. Yun lang. You don't even have to memorize the verses in the Bible. The only thing that should be uttered in your life, in your mouth, is everything that Christ has done in your life. What is that? Our young people has a story to tell. Our lolos and lolas have a story to tell. Our young couples have a story to tell. What is that transformation that has happened? As Jesus commanded the man to go back to his family and tell them everything God has done for us. That is the same thing that we're gonna do today. Okay? Si Aldab made 24 million tweets. Si Pastillas Girl daw did 5 million tweets. So we're going to do the same. Go to the WIN-SQ Koinonia site. I posted something there that said this. Did you see it? I am transformed. We will be proclaiming today. All of us will proclaim. Amen? 24 million tweets. Kaya natin yon. I'd like you to tweet that. I'd like you to tweet it. I'd like you to post it on your Instagram. I'd like you to post it on your Facebook, because we're going to proclaim. What are we going to proclaim? What area in your life manifested the greatest transformation? So you type in I am transformed and state what area of transformation greatly manifested in your life. We have been transformed. It doesn't end today. It doesn't end here. It doesn't even end in your koinonia meeting. The transformation is a continuous process. And the I am transformed is our proclamation, because Christ's transforming power propels us to proclaim.